Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2 Point Conversion, part of the Going for Two live network. Hope I haven't said that too many times. Already, I'm weird off the bat. Kyle Senra here, hosting with Dr. James Ferretti, Gladys, and the B League says Dan. How's everyone doing?
Just peachy.
Gladys, how you feeling after eking out that tie against the Detroit Lions yesterday?
I feel as if I might throw up every time someone mentions it. Thank you, Doc.
Here's my question, though. In all seriousness, how would it have felt if Santoro nailed that field goal and the Steelers would have lost? Like, do you feel like that would have been a lot worse, or you only feel like marginally better than if the Steelers would have actually lost?
I'll cards on the table. I had Detroit in that game because Detroit's going to win a game, and Steelers are known to play down to their opposition. And Mason Rudolph was the quarterback, so I kind of wanted him. I think it would have been better had they lost. I mean, what the fuck is a tie? Why don't they play 2 overtimes? I don't even understand what's happening. So yeah, it was a brutal. Not only that, but I set Matt Ryan. I set Kirk Cousins and played Matt Ryan, and he didn't even have 8 points. He didn't have 8 points. He had 0.68 fantasy points against the Cowboys. So it was just like, I went and watched Red Notice on Netflix, which I highly advise.
Wasn't that fantastic?
Know,
As a side note, the correct answer when I asked you about the Steelers was you're supposed to say, I don't know, Doc, how did the Raiders do against Kansas City?
Oh,
and
then
I would have had nothing. But yes, I watched two Red Notices. I watched the movie, and then I watched the Red Notice that the Chiefs put the Raiders on, and then I was ready to commit Harry Carey. So,
you noticed Andy Reid there on the sideline.
Yeah, exactly. I noticed him calling a bunch of plays that worked really well, and I noticed Deshaun Jackson needs to stop eating buttered popcorn before halftime.
That was a really bad job.
That was horrific. I don't know what he was doing. Yeah,
they should have just. And he didn't get targeted again, did he? The rest of the day. So there you go, Deshaun. Whatever. It was. Red Notice. I highly recommend it if you.
Red Notice, very good, very good movie. Check it out.
Thanks. Check it out. On notice, guys. Dan, if you don't mind, I'll take over the rant to start. It's not gonna be that long. Gladys, you mentioned overtime. Why don't they have 2 overtimes? Why don't they make overtime better? I mean, college football, CFL, they've got a much different overtime system that, frankly, works well for those leagues. I think it's better, so I think the NFL just needs to do what the CFL does. There's a lot of times they should do that anyway, but yeah, that's one example. That's my rant.
What does the CFL do? I don't know how much time that would take to explain.
Yeah. So it's basically each team gets a possession from the opposing team's 35-yard line.
Oh, it's like college. Almost.
And yes, and you're not allowed to kick a point after on a touchdown. You have to go for 2 if you do score. So, and then if at the end of those possessions it's still a tie, then they just keep going until it isn't.
Yeah, my whole problem with overtime is that it stops. I mean, if you're going to go through the trouble of playing an overtime game, at least let someone win or lose. Don't end in a fucking tie. That's ridiculous.
And with changing the rules, I mean, one thing I didn't like was when they diminished it from 15-minute quarter to a 10-minute quarter.
Yeah.
Why? Like, because I've heard people talk about, it's still like a normal football game. Like, you're not doing artificially put them at the opponent's 35, kind of like what the CFL does. Like, you're still playing football the way it's supposed to be played. Then why not play a full 15-minute quarter, right? So it's kind of like they're stuck in the middle. They want to make it slightly different, but not.
Anyone saying that did not watch that game yesterday because that's not football how it's supposed to be played in an overtime. That was like.
I don't think anybody would argue that's not football how it's supposed to be played.
Yeah, like that's
Speaking
kind of
of
the
how
struggle
things
with
are
both those
supposed
teams.
to be played. For everybody out there that's watching, once again, Twitter comments are not working. So if you're on Twitter and you're commenting, we're not seeing them. So don't blame us. Blame Restream. They said they're going to fix it. We're still waiting. But we love you. We want to hear from you. So find us on another platform, YouTube, Twitch. If you're on Facebook, then you will be anonymized. So you'll just come up as Facebook user. But we will see your comment. So if you want to interact with us and ask us questions and comments and tell us that you love Red Notice, that you think that Detroit and Pittsburgh was not a great game, that the Raiders suck, or anything else really, then find us on one of those platforms, and then we'll be able to hear from you.
Can anyone bag on the Raiders? I mean, they've had like probably the most horrendous off-field stuff going on of any team so far. So I say let the Raiders do whatever the Raiders do and bag on the Steelers. I have no problem with that because
I'm just struck by the poignancy of your comment where you're like, that overtime game is not the way that football is supposed to be played. And I was like, that may be the truest thing that I've ever heard in my entire life.
Oh my God, it's so bad.
You know what I want to see? I want to see like NBA Jam style overtime, 2-on-2. Just launching it, wide receiver on cornerback, let him have at it. That's it. From the 50 as well, you just got to launch one.
You know what? I seriously worry about you. Seriously.
Like a penalty shootout as well, so each one gets five turns.
Seriously, I worry about you. A lot.
I think that's pretty good.
You just run, everybody runs an all go, and the quarterback gets like 4 chances to throw it up, and whoever gets the touch. I actually kind of like that.
Or Hail Marys. You get 5 attempts on a Hail Mary.
That's it.
Okay, first of all, Ben Roethlisberger can't throw it that far. So if Ben was in the game, we would lose it on that alone.
Jared Goff really can't. I mean, Goff can throw it that far, just can't throw it far accurately, so you're probably fine anyway.
Screenplay, just get the blockers in front.
Yes. Okay, that I'm okay with.
All right, so overtime rules aside, I think we went a little overtime on that conversation.
Imagine Ben Roethlisberger on the Philly special. Could you imagine?
Dan's not done. No, he's not done.
Just like Ben, right? He just keeps going and going. This guy's washed. His career's over. No, they're still playing.
The rant's over. Dan's like, no, I still got a little more left. I can get another 10 yards out of this.
I want to see Roethlisberger one down the sideline.
I hate you, Dan.
Don't.
I do. All
right. Well, I think one thing we can all agree on is we all hate injuries. But even though injuries suck, your fantasy team doesn't have to. Great book by Dr. James Freddy, and we're also getting into some fantasy analysis for those injuries. Thanks for showing that, Dan. For the people again on YouTube to see that. Again, appreciate anyone who's listening on replay on podcast as well. But yes, so I think I guess the first thing we really should talk about is the Robert Woods ACL tear. Yeah, I mean, it impacts the game tonight, and we'll get to that later on, specifically tonight. But for rest of season, Doc, I guess
kind of suspicious that the day OBJ shows up, Robert Woods has a season-ending tear. Anyone? Is it just me? Okay, whatever.
I mean, I kind of interpret it as this happy coincidence, bad luck. I mean, it sounds like not so happy coincidence. Sorry, Robert Woods. Yeah. That shouldn't have said happy, but it sounds like they didn't even know on Friday, right? It sounds like Robert Woods went home, came back to the facility unaware of the fact that he had a torn ACL, right? Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's just the crazy coincidence luck storylines that are the NFL. But Doc, I guess starting with Robert Woods, I guess really for his health question wise is what does this do for him? I guess long term, is he going to be ready for next season? I mean, he'll be I believe a 30-year-old coming off a torn ACL. So at that age, does it get tougher to recover, or is it still just kind of like any ACL in the modern medicine and then in the 21st century, we can deal with that a lot better?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So for just to recap, what ended up happening is Robert Woods kind of injured his knee towards the end of Friday's practice, and subsequently found out he tore his ACL and he's out for the year. But he finished the practice and just kind of had some mild pain and maybe a little weakness, but they didn't really think much of it. And then they sent him for some imaging or they did some tests and discovered he tore his ACL. So one of the takeaways from this is just kind of the illustration of how ACLs can be, quote, not that bad looking in some cases. So you always want to be worried for your players, or players that you have rostered, if you hear that they have a knee injury, and act accordingly. So that's just something that it's you're never really, it's going to be hard. I didn't mean this as a pun. This is going to be horrible. You're never really out of the woods when you have a knee injury with your player until they get cleared. So you can always have that kind of pop up. And this is an illustration of that very thing where it's we think if they got comments after the game would have been we think he's fine. He's day to day. The x-rays were negative, whatever. And sure enough, he's got an ACL injury and he's done for the year. So going forward, usually ACLs, and we saw this with Saquon Barkley kind of leading up to the year, it's about an 8 or 9 month time frame from injury, surgery, return to sport. So presuming that he gets surgery this week, that would kind of put him back. Now I got to do math, kind of mid to third week of August, which is cutting it really, really close for the beginning of the season. We saw it with Joe Burrow. We saw it with Saquon Barkley. So there's a chance that he ends up on the PUP list next year to start, because he's not going to have a real training camp. He's not really going to be able to do as much as he normally would in the offseason because he's going to be rehabbing this injury. So my expectation is he's going to start slow. But once he gets ramped up, he should be okay. Probably something mimicking what we saw with Saquon Barkley this year, provided everything goes according to plan and there's no issues, setbacks, successful surgery, all that other stuff.
So you'd still draft Robert Woods next year if the injury was baked into his price. Like if there's a discount, like if he's not going in the third, fourth round like he has been the last few seasons, if he dips to the fifth, sixth round, you're fine buying the lower price with the injury.
Well, interestingly enough, in my book that you referenced, I have a way of you to come up with your own fantasy injury calculator, so you can actually see what the time frame is and then figure out based on his projected stats with a replacement player added in what you are essentially drafting if everything goes according to plan. And then you can see what the market gives you. So the market may be overdrafting or underdrafting Robert Woods, and you can kind of see where you fit. And that happened with Michael Thomas this year. Now, granted, everything went, as Dan would put it, tits up with Michael Thomas. But at least the idea is that he was going to miss 8 or 9 games, and what could you reasonably expect with that? And given that information in the drafts that I was in, Michael Thomas was still being drafted ahead of that injury price baked in. So I ended up with no exposure to Michael Thomas. But if he would have slipped a couple more rounds, then I would have taken him because the market then would have gone in the other direction. So it's kind of like that thing where it's like based on the projections, it's like, if you draft this guy in the 4th round, I hate it because he's a 6th round player to me. But if you get him in the 8th round, he's a huge value. It's still the same player. It's just a question of when can you get him on your team and how much does it cost to acquire him?
All right. So again, that's looking forward to next season. So let's kind of pull it back for this season. Odell Beckham Jr., who Dan, you're updating us. He is active tonight. Obviously, Cooper Kupp's the number 1 there, but Odell Beckham Jr., Van Jefferson,
active also.
Both
Von
active.
Miller's active. Okay, interesting. So all the new acquisitions for the Rams. But yeah, so I guess between Beckham, Van Jefferson, I guess as the 2 wide receivers, and then Tyler Higbee as the tight end, who do you all prefer out of those 3 options? Gladys, Dan, who wants to begin? I don't feel like making decisions apparently.
Yeah. Gladys, what do you think?
I like Van Jefferson, but my fear is that Van Jefferson and OBJ have the same skill set, like the boomer bust deep throw long guy. So I'm going to not say Van Jefferson then, and I'm going to go Tyler Higbee, even though I'm not a really big fan of Tyler Higbee. I just think that you don't go out and get OBJ and then not give him targets. I mean, you don't. And if you're Sean McVay,
unless you're Cleveland, right?
I can just imagine Sean McVay going, "This is the greatest year of my entire life," and like scheming up all kinds of like crazy plans for OBJ. So for tonight, I would go Van Jefferson, but from here on out, after tonight, I would go OBJ because it's like in there. I mean,
because they're on a bye next week. So after this game, he's going to get basically 2 full weeks of practice before his next game. So
exactly,
that should be enough to acclimate him. And probably keep it simple play wise here. But the crazy stuff you can implement that 2 weeks from now. That's a good point. And to your credit on the Tyler Higbee thing, I heard Scott Connor talk about this on the Dynasty and Chill emergency pods for Robert Woods injury, and he thinks Higgins is less impacted by Beckham joining than say what Woods would have been, or certainly Van Jefferson, just because he was already playing 90% of the snaps sometimes as a tight end. He's getting all that tight end work to himself. That role's going to stay exactly the same probably, right? Whether it's Woods or Beckham, Higbee really should be unaffected. So he's going to kind of maintain a role now. Now it's just, is Beckham going to replace exactly what Woods does, or between him and Jefferson it averages out, and then like you said, Gladys gets lower than what Higbee is. So, those are the ranges of outcomes. Dan, did you want to chime in on the Rams?
Between Beckham, Higbee, and Jefferson, I think.
Yeah.
I think I said this to you guys last week. I think, and I was close. I said he was going to LA. I said the Chargers, but I think the guy's box office, and I think this is prime time, and this is a local rival, and I think they're going to force the ball to Beckham more than we anticipate. I would. Listen, everyone's got an ego, right? McVay included. You're gonna try and prove a point. Statement game for the Rams tonight for me.
Okay.
Why is this a statement game for the Rams?
Why? Because they just arguably got one of the best receivers in the game. Forget fantasy. He draws attention no matter where he goes, and they got him for peanuts. Peanuts. I don't know. I got a gut feeling that this is their way of pretty much eliminating the 49ers. They're going to knock them out by a win, pretty much. What do they go? 3-6?
3-5, 49ers.
Yeah, so they'll go 3-6.
Yeah.
There's no way back for them after that. I don't know. I've got a gut feeling they're going to try and make a point. It's that first game of the year. I still remember the first game of the year. First play was that 80-yard bomb to Van Jefferson. I got a feeling they're going to do something sneaky like that.
Yeah.
Just for the hell of it. I don't know. Logic. I agree with Gladys 100%. Jefferson's the logical play to take over, more of a role. He knows the playbook. But this is LA. It's McVay against Shanahan. He's going to want to go out and I think put his mark on this rivalry. I think this is the way to do it. Go get Beckham let him off the leash. Show Cleveland what they're missing out on. Why not?
So Dan, let's extend just beyond this game. Like Robert Woods, I believe he was entering Week 10. I believe he was wide receiver 12.
Wide receiver 12. Yeah.
In points per game. Yeah. So do you think Beckham is capable of doing that, of being a top 15 receiver rest of season?
I'm more than certain that he is capable of doing anything he puts his mind to. He's that damn good when he's given the opportunity. Do I think he's had that opportunity? I think he's partially to blame for the things that have gone wrong in Cleveland. I don't think anyone can say otherwise. He's had health issues as well. This is as clean a start as this guy's ever going to get. And he's on display for the next 8-9 weeks heading into free agency. That's what I think, because there's a lot of big names going into free agency next year. This is his way of, reintroducing himself to the crowd. I think, this is what I can do. Forget the one-handed grabs. Get those numbers. Be electric. Go do all that. I think he's more than capable. Yeah. Why can't he? Why can't he? Why can't he do what Robert Woods does?
Okay. Doc.
Good question.
So I think you can also answer that, like, which of the three receivers you think will be like the number 2 pass catcher to own like the rest of the season for the Rams. But I guess you probably want to talk about like Beckham and the separated shoulder. Same with Elijah Mitchell, who will be starting again for the 49ers at running back tonight. So if you want to kind of all lump that together, feel free, Maestro.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, we talked about this last week. I'm really curious to see how Beckham ends up doing, because I mean, he, like, anytime he doesn't produce, then he kind of gets lumped into the box of like he's a diva or he's dogging it or whatever. And that's been following him since his days, like towards the end of his divorce from New York. But he's still dealing with this grade 3 shoulder AC joint separation or AC sprain. And that's, again, a complete tear of all the ligaments that hold the end of the collarbone to the shoulder. The scapula, as it were, which is the bone that Sam Darnold broke, which brought Cam Newton back into the league, which we can talk about later. So this is a really severe injury, and it's still being, like, nobody's mentioned it in like 3 weeks. There's been all this talk about, the OBJ's dad and his beef with Baker Mayfield, and he wants out of Cleveland, and Cleveland's cutting him, and they wish him the best. And then where is he going? And is he going to the Packers? Is he going to the Rams? He goes to the Rams, and nobody's talking about. He passed his physical, presumably, so maybe they're not concerned about it that much from that standpoint. But this is a good opportunity for us to see if he really does have anything left this year. He really has had a lot of injury issues. He doesn't help himself in that regard with, his kind of antical behavior. But he still does, coming into the year, we talked about him on the Dynasty Gambit. We talked about him in the offseason, and I was like, I still believe. There's still a part of me that believes that he could be something resembling what he was when he left New York, and we just haven't seen it yet. And that part of me still exists. So better quarterback, better offense. They seem to be moving in the right direction. It seems like a better market for him. All the things Dan said are absolutely true. So I'm really curious to see how sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it doesn't, but the potential is definitely there. So I'm interested. And Van Jefferson, just opportunity. Like, he's a talented guy. He's shown it. He just kind of is overshadowed by Kupp and Robert Woods, and now opportunity for him to step up and take over bigs as well.
All right. Okay. So yeah, apparently, I'm got some viewers here. The Fantasy Futurist. Sup, y'all? Happy Monday Night Football. Need a big night from the Van Jefferson experience tonight. So, might be the way to go in this game again. We'll see if Beckham getting acclimated to the offense. Like, it's one of those I've heard a lot of people say, like, Beckham's going to score a touchdown, but like Van Jefferson might be the one that catch more passes, gain more yards, and maybe he's like still more the big play threat in this game while Beckham's still learning the route tree specifically to the Rams.
Yeah, that is the real thing. These playbooks are extremely complicated. Like, this is not something. It's almost like learning a different language. Like, there is a learning curve. Like, as much of a veteran as you could be, like, you go to a new team, and I don't know the intricacies of it. I just know that it's a lot more complicated than people give it credit for. And some players, it takes them half a year to catch up. So we really don't know, like, what he's going to be able to pick up and what he isn't, and how similar it is to other things that he's done in the past. We're going to have to wait and see on that. But there is value to having been there and knowing the system, because there is a learning curve associated with it, no matter how good of a player you are.
So does anyone sounds like everyone's fine. Okay, so like tonight for sure, but after the bye week, is everyone still fine playing Van Jefferson? Deeper leagues, not necessarily an every week starter, but when the matchups are right.
Yeah, I am. I don't have a choice in some leagues. Like, he's my guy, and he's going out there. So you're the number 2 now, Bucko. Go get him.
I think the answer to that, to me, is, again, I know that they're almost similar in certain degrees, but like Michael Gallup's extremely viable for the Cowboys, right? Like, you're starting him as a wide receiver 3 on an offense that likes to. I mean, they're the pass heaviest team in the league. I get it, but the Rams aren't too far behind, I wouldn't imagine. And if Beckham's only going to make Van Jefferson's life a little bit easier no matter what.
Yeah.
I think his role doesn't have to change. He's still viable as a wide receiver 3 or a deflect.
They got to pay attention. If he's out there, somebody's got to pay attention to him, which means that they're going to be paying 100%. Less attention to somebody else.
100%. So I don't think he's less viable at all. Van Jefferson is a very good play every other week, no matter what. I mean, we've all started Jamal Agnew at some point this year, right? So if you're happy to start Jamal Agnew for the Jaguars, you're feeling all right about Van Jefferson.
And happy to do it, too.
That's right. Yeah, all day.
So we're going to move from the Monday night game tonight to what will be the Thursday night game this week. Falcons Patriots, and there's a few players in that game actually that require some attention from an injury analysis standpoint. So Cordarrelle Patterson. As soon as I saw the report of this too, I'm like, oh, this is going to annoy Doc, the way they put this, right? A mild high ankle sprain. Oh, Doc, boy. Is this a Bermuda Triangle? Does this actually exist?
No, this doesn't exist. Like I think we talked about. I'm going to say this again because I was really proud of this analogy from a month ago. It's like saying somebody has a mild high ankle sprain is like saying somebody has a mild gunshot wound to the chest. Like, just by the very nature of what it is, it's bad. Like, maybe there are degrees of bad, but they're all bad. Like, it's not like, oh, okay, well, it's a mild gunshot wound to the chest, so you'll probably be okay. Rub some dirt on it. It's like, no, get this person to the hospital. There's lots of valuable, important stuff in the chest. We need to make sure that it's not all destroyed.
Sounds like
that's bad.
Harvey Keitel in Reservoir Dogs telling Mr. Orange. I can't remember the actor's name, but like
Tim Roth.
Tim Roth, right? Yeah, like gunshot in the gut. It's one of the best places to get shot. Like,
yeah, exactly. That's what they said. That's not good. I mean, that means we know the deal. Like, he's looking at a multi-week absence. They're probably going to put him on IR. If they don't, then it's kind of wishful thinking. That's not good. So he's definitely going to be out for. They already kind of were laying the groundwork. He's going to be out for this week, but he's going to be out most likely for multiple weeks, and then Mike Davis and Wayne Gallman become worth a look or a speculative play because we really don't know how that's going to shake out. Wayne Gallman ended up getting more carries last week, but Mike Davis has flashed a little bit. I mean, Cordero Patterson has just kind of like exploded. I looked at his actual stats and the PPR points. It's like he's been over double digits in PPR points per game every week except last week when he got hurt and week 1 where he got like 9. And every other week he's been double-digit points, and in some cases it's been like ridiculous double digits. So this is really a big loss, and he was funneling a lot of production away from everybody. Russell Gage, Kyle Pitts, all the other running backs. Calvin Ridley's MIA, so somebody's going to have to pick up the slack here. And both of those guys are decent candidates to get at least some kind of share of the backfield.
So I guess, Gallman, Davis. Gladys, who do you prefer between those two?
In that offense, if I had to choose, gun to the head, I would go Gallman. Because even though Mike Davis hasn't really flashed that much, I mean, and a lot of it is Patterson's fault because Patterson has been so good that he hasn't really needed to. But Gallman, when the chips were down, and granted that game was just like a shit show for that offense, but when the chips were down, Gallman was the one they gave the ball to. So if I had to choose, I would go Gallman. But I'm not choosing, and I hate them all.
Dan, how about you? Do you between Gallman or Davis?
Oh my God! Were those words?
He's just refusing to answer. How about you, Doc? Do you
speechless? Go ahead, Dan. What do you got?
If I had to pick someone, my first is I just checked the injury list that we're going over now. If I had to pick someone, I would have picked someone like Hayden Hurst. I would have tried to get up a different path.
It wasn't the choice. The choice was Connor.
He's hurt too.
You're saying you'd rather invest in the pass catchers than another running back in that offense?
I mean, Mike Davis has fallen over before he gets to the line of scrimmage. I don't want no part of that. Listen, we saw from a Giants perspective, I was irritated to see them lose Wayne Gallman to pay Devontae Booker because Gallman was ridiculously good last year as a fantasy asset back half of the season last year. Top 5 or top 8 or something for a 6-week stretch. The guy was an absolute stud. So, I mean, as an actual running back, Wayne Gallman. Absolutely. Mike Davis, that experiment failed. That's why they went to Cordero Patterson. That's it. I just don't see the reason to get why invest your time into Mike Davis, you're not going to start him now. That's the thing. I wouldn't touch him.
You might have to. That's the thing that gets interesting. So I'm gonna summarize my thoughts on this really briefly. Yeah, go ahead.
On the short week.
Ugh. Oh well, I mean, it depends on what you're looking at on your team. Maybe you're right, but this is looking like it's going to be multi-week. So this week, next week, we got to think it's getting down to crunch time. We're down the home stretch here. We're going towards the playoffs. Like this is,
and I know this is getting off topic, which would bother Gladys a little bit, but I'd rather just, if I had to make the choice between those two now, I'd go get Dante Foreman instead. Gun to my head. Wayne Gallman.
All right. Well, I mean, so your answer is it's like Brewster's Millions. Your answer is C, none of the above, and I respect that. And for all of you that are under the age of 35, that's a movie from the 80s. So you probably were like 2, but go watch it. It's good. Richard Pryor, really good movie. Okay. So I'm going to summarize really quickly what I said a couple of weeks ago. Talent, opportunity, makeup. Talent. They both got talent. Opportunity. They both got opportunity. Makeup. They both have had the chance before to step in when the starter got injured, and they both were successful. So my answer is it's all the above. Go get either one of them, and then cross your fingers and hope for the best. best. But chances are you're going to be valuable to you now than they were this time last week. And it's going to be multiple weeks where they're going to have to sort this thing out. So if you got a team where you're trying to make the playoffs, like these guys may actually end up starting for you in a week or two because players get injured. Bye weeks still are happening. Like bad stuff can happen, and these guys may considerably increase in value, and you may luck yourselves into a Dearness Johnson type situation. Everybody else gets COVID, gets hurt, something else horrible happens to them. They get fired from Cleveland, whatever, and now they're the last person standing. Oh, look at that. The guy's getting 80% of the snaps, and he's going to produce. So that's what you're going for. But can you predict what's going to happen? Not really, but you can predict that something's going to happen, and sometimes it's not bad to have those guys on your roster when the music stops. Yes, Dan.
I would also say that week 11 is normally the trade deadline for a lot of leagues too. If that's fair, is that about right?
Yeah.
Enough.
Like, if you have Patterson, and you can sell it or package it to a point where it's all right. He's going to miss 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Get rid of it.
Yeah, give or take 4 weeks.
If the proof is there with what he gets per game, try and move on with him and get something back off someone else's roster. Because if your choice is Wayne Gallman or someone else, I'd be looking somewhere else. That's the thing. Like if this.
Well, in fairness, that's what people said last year about Wayne Gallman, and I believe you were one of the people who really benefited from having him on your roster. I believe it was you, and it was that very player.
Nah, not me. But I would say that. Okay. Nah, I would say that like. Patterson's had an incredible run, something we haven't seen from. I mean, he came from nowhere this year, right? Like that's the thing. If he's out for 4 weeks, I'd try and cash in on that, package him with someone, and bring someone else back in.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, that's not unreasonable. It's not unreasonable at all.
Gorman or Davis, I'd rather Gorman, just personally. I've seen enough like Davis to know that he's not going anywhere. But why not use the opportunity to maybe upgrade or bring something better in than Gorman? I don't know.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
So I agree Gallman over Davis. Doc, are you of that agreement? Are we all unanimous that we prefer Wayne Gallman based on
honestly, I would take either one of them. Honestly.
Okay, so
I don't have a preference. Whichever one I can get, whichever one the market says is less valuable, and I have a chance that I can get that person, like I'm going to put in a claim for both of them, and whichever one I get, they're both kind of dart throws for me, but they're reasonably, decent dart throws.
Because, so you're not putting much weight in the 15 carries for Gallman. That's just the way it goes. It could have just as easily be Mike Davis with that workload next week.
Because that game score was because he got injured in game, and the game plan's out the window at that point, and also it's 45-3, whatever. It was out of hand for the majority of that game because the offense just wasn't working. So I don't know if just taking that small sample size is good to expand upon that as representative of how things are going to look going forward. It could be, but I don't know. So that's why I'm kind of like, I'm not sure how it's going to something not too dissimilar to that a couple of weeks ago where everybody else got injured and then they had to give one of the running backs kind of all the carries. And then the next week they activated a couple other people. I feel like maybe it was
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Well,
all of them. All of the above.
Yeah, probably happened to multiple teams. But that's what I mean. It's like when things happen in game and the starter goes down and, other guys are inactive, so they can't be utilized week they're active. That becomes, it changes the landscape. So I think the landscape is going to potentially look different on Thursday night, and then we'll have to wait and see. But either one of them is worth a spec pickup, and maybe not to start this week unless you're really desperate. But wait and see what happens, and then maybe you got something. That's kind of the way I see it.
So speaking of that Thursday night game that is upcoming, Patriots main running back Damian Harris. So he missed week 10 with a concussion. So it's funny because Rondae Stevenson also was in the concussion protocol. He got cleared. He played. He started. He did really well. And so now what are we looking for Thursday? Is there any indication if Harris will be cleared by then or not? Or at this point, it's still up in the air. We really won't find out until Thursday, basically.
Yeah. I mean, he's still in the concussion protocol. The fact that he missed week 10 is not great, but it's not like a death knell either. But it's just something that you have to watch, and the protocol is there because there's objective criteria that you have to meet in order to clear the protocol, which is a lot better than give the guy some smelling salts, rub some dirt on it, and send him back out there 3 plays later, which that was also football in the 80s and 90s for all you youngsters out there. They're not doing that anymore, so that's a good thing. But the fact that he still has a concussion a week later is not great. So you just have to see how he progresses through the protocol. In the interim, Rondae Stevenson did really well, and Brandon Bolden was involved. J.J. Taylor is still hanging around. So having one of these guys, it's exact same type of situation. It's good to have them on your roster, and then things happen. And all of a sudden, you may end up with a starting running back week 14, week 15, or sooner because other guys get hurt or something happens. You just don't know who it's going to be.
So, Dan, when you're saying look elsewhere from Gallman and Davis, are you talking to Rondae Stevenson? Like, that's someone you'd rather have than both those guys?
Yeah.
Now, he may already be rostered, so like a guy like Gallman might be available in a lot of leagues, whereas like even Mike Davis might not be, Stevenson might not be, but if you prioritize it that way. Gladys, would you agree Stevenson above either Falcons back?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that again, that might, I think it might be so obvious because frankly, Stevenson might be rostered a lot more than, again, a guy like Gallman. So we'll see. But yeah, so some good context there. One thing I want to add, not football related, but Going for Two related. We've got the Going for Two store through Viridian Global, goingfor2.com/store if you want all the Going for Two stuff. Or ViridianGlobal.com for all their collections, tons of different podcasts. They've got a Scott Fishbowl. I like this shirt. Like, you got this hat, you got this shirt. I'll call it the Ramondre Radiohead Stevenson shirt for this week, because Ramondre Stevenson did end up helping me win my Scott Fishbowl matchup this week. So thanks, Stevenson. That was the Sunday morning lineup tinker that did actually work, because that was funny enough, replaced him. I put him in above Mike Davis. I took Mike Davis out and put in Stevenson. So that was definitely the 20-point swing that was needed to win. So thanks, Ramondre Stevenson. One more Patriots player is Jonnu Smith. Like Damian Harris, missed week 10. Shoulder injury here. So it was kind of questionable all week. So, Doc, I don't know if we, what like the timetable is for Jonnu's return on the short week. Do you think he has a chance to play Thursday, or is it going to be just another week for him out?
Well, the real question that I have is, I mean, this was kind of a surprise deactivation because it looked like he was kind of trending in the right direction, and then all of a sudden he's out. But I've been looking, and I still don't have an actual diagnosis other than shoulder. So I don't know what the nature of the injury is. Is it an AC joint? Is it torn cartilage? Is it something else? So that, for me, really kind of dictates your ability to predict how he's going to do once we know the nature of the injury, which we don't. So this is something that you just have to watch the practice reports, and see how it goes. The one thing that I will mention is, even though it's unclear what's going on here, Hunter Henry has averaged almost 11 PPR points per game the last 7 weeks, and Jonnu only has one double-digit point scoring game all year, and that's not including the ones that he missed. Like, the games that he was active, he's only had PPR points once. So even if he does play, it's pretty clear that Hunter Henry is the one that has the rapport with Mac Jones and is the more leaned upon part of this offense, at least so far.
I guess my question, everyone, just because like you're kind of hinting at it, Doc, at the end of that nice, very good speech there. Jonnu Smith's production really been struggling. I'm looking at his numbers: 2 games above 30 yards this year. He has 1 touchdown. He has 3 catches or more in only 3 games, and none since week 4. My question, everyone, is Jonnu Smith even worth hanging on to at this point? Is he just droppable and you just cut your losses? You don't even care if he's playing or not? And I love Jonnu Smith. It pains me to say that.
Yeah, me too. I think you do. I think you just cut him.
Do we see what happened to Hunter Henry this week? Do we see what happened when we moved Jonnu Smith out? Hunter Henry goes bonkers.
I mean, to be fair, Hunter Henry's kind of been doing that all season. He's been just catching touchdowns like crazy, even with Smith there.
Yeah, he's been a bit more TD dependent than anything else. But
that's true.
Like, he just looks so much better without him out there. It's just they're running Jonnu Smith in these fullback packages as well. I don't know. He could have been cut weeks ago and you wouldn't have noticed. for me. He's not doing anything. There's too many other tight ends out there that are half doing something. He's doing the opposite. You can get rid of him.
You'd rather have Evan Ingram than Jonnu Smith, right?
Yeah, sounds like it.
Someone read the article. Yes, I get it.
Wow.
Yes, I would.
Gladys, do you agree, or are you hanging on to hope for Jonnu Smith?
As tight end dependent as the Patriots are, I would hang on to Jonnu Smith as a handcuff in case something happened to Hunter Henry, because that they're going to target their tight end, whoever it may be. And right now, it just happens to be Hunter Henry, who has like a touchdown in every game but one in the last 6 games. So I would hang on. If I had the space on my roster, I would hang on to Jonnu Smith as a handcuff to Henry. Although the Patriots have like a bye in like week 14, which
that's what I was going to say
that's
too.
Tough. That's really tough.
So taking that into account.
So if you designate a roster spot for a backup tight end, and let's say you have like your backup and you have you roster 3, right? That would be
rosters. I have like 2 tight ends on every fantasy league, at least 2 tight ends. Some I have 3.
Okay, that's fair because I like some leagues where I drafted Travis Kelce, for instance. I didn't have a backup tight end, and now I'm kind of looking at it with his bye week coming up next week. Now, okay, that's what I'll look at it to who. But I find like you've got a lead option like that. You're also probably not worried about Jonnu Smith. So you're right. Like the people who roster Jonnu Smith are probably those that are carrying multiple tight ends anyway, trying to stream the position. So if you have been doing that anyway, you may as well just hang on to him and get it, unless you could really get 3 solid options that are better that are out there by this point of the season. That's probably tough. All those guys that you would for sure take over Jonnu are probably rostered. So okay, so Glad's saying hang on hope. It's not full cut no matter what. Got to be deep enough though, right? Like shallow leagues.
Yeah, you have to be you have to have the roster space. Like I have Travis Kelce, but I also have Tyler Conklin in one league. So I always have I don't know. I always have more than one tight end.
Some guys are just too good to cut. It's like even if you don't need them per se, it's like you don't want somebody else. It's like there's an opportunity cost.
You don't want
you don't want somebody else to use them against you. Yeah. Like I'd much rather have 2 or 3 tight ends, even if I don't necessarily need one. Like you got a Mark Andrews, you got a Hawkinson, you got a Kelce, you got a Waller, something like that. But I don't necessarily want to leave Tyler Conklin out there if I got the roster space because I don't want somebody else to pick him up and use him against me. I'd much rather them have to start some second tier guy and mine for gold that way. So it's kind of keep away. There's an opportunity cost associated with just leaving these guys out there because somebody else could pick them up for nothing and use them against you.
It's pretty much my mindset. But
okay, so arguably the most impactful injury, at least with repercussions of potentially league-winning potential, Aaron Jones, an MCL sprain, looks like. So not a tear. So, Doc, what's the diagnosis for Aaron Jones right now, or at least for what information we do have on it?
Yeah, so whenever they say mild, ligament sprain or strain, or in ligament cases, they're sprains. So mild ligament sprain, it's usually code for a grade 1 injury, which usually carries somewhere around a 2 to 4 week time frame. So they're currently saying that he's only going to be out 1 to 2 weeks, but I caution you that their bye week is week 13, and they're doing really well, and they're looking like they're going to make the playoffs and hopefully make a deep playoff run. So this could very easily keep him out until week 14, despite it being, a grade 1 or a mild injury, relatively speaking, and the fact that they have a very capable replacement in A.J. Dillon and that they've been playing well or at least good enough to win. So I don't really think they're going to rush him back, and I would not be surprised that even if he were healthy, that he ended up being kind of like a pseudo-healthy scratch, to give him that time, give him a full month to heal completely from this, not just to the point where it kind of feels better, but it's still a little wonky and he's wearing a brace and whatever. Give it a chance to really heal and then bring him back after the bye week when he's had 4 weeks and see how he does then, provided there's no setbacks or anything like that. So that's the cautionary tale as far as people say, I don't want to pick up A.J. Dillon. And by the way, do your due diligence. Go check and see if he's available on your waiver wire. Like a lot of leagues that I'm in, he's rostered already, but you got to go look because you never know. I think what's the number on Yahoo? He's available in 40% of leagues. Like 40% is not zero. So just do your due diligence and check and see if he's out there. And if he is, you really want to put a claim in for him because you might have a starting running back for the next month. And a really good one at that.
I think he's like a tier above, like maybe even 2 tiers above the guys we were talking about earlier, like Stevenson, Gallman.
He's blow the rest of your fab budget level. Like this is the guy. Like coming down the stretch, if you need somebody to plug in there, you can get him. That's like basically in a high level RB2 to your team for whatever. Like if I'm fighting for a playoff spot, like you shut up and take the rest of my fab money. Like I'm taking my shot on AJ Dillon, and I'll take it from there. And then I'll worry about the playoffs when I get there, hopefully.
No, I agree. It seems like an emptier fab. Like he might be one of the best pickups all year, if again he's available. Eric's asking Van Jefferson over OBJ tonight. I think we're all kind of in agreement with that. We talked about it earlier. I think we'll talk about it a bit more in a bit, Eric, as we do the props. But yeah, I think we're all kind of thinking that too. That the player who's been there, the established. I guess not. He's only in his second year, but the established vet on the team.
I don't think we all agreed on that. I think Dan wanted OBJ over Van Jefferson tonight because he thinks they're going to go for a splash play. Am I right?
We're Hollywood. We're going Hollywood.
To you.
Oh, you are? I'm sorry, Dan.
We're going Hollywood.
I need to listen better. I'm not good at that.
We're going Hollywood. That's what we do.
Yeah, I think the thing with AJ Dillon I just wanted to add is the Packers are notoriously like very patient as a medical staff. Like they're one team that really doesn't rush players back. So like I agree with you, Doc. I could see them even after the bye coming out week 14, they may still hold them out that game too. So, all right. Yeah. So someone put I don't know if this is you, Doc. You're saying it's like a similar injury to what CEH had, and like I mean, first off, you see how long CEH has been out for. So maybe also. Maybe the Packers just hold him out for the entire regular season and only bring him back for the playoffs. I know my co-host Jesse and I discussed that on the Full Press Packers pod today as well. That episode's out now for those who want to check it out. I've been plugging a lot of stuff. So there's a few other players. I guess Dallas Goedert's probably the biggest. He's people are probably starting him every week almost at tight end. So he's got a concussion. So I guess Doc, what's the playbook for Goddard? Again, concussion. We just kind of have to wait and see. Who's the Eagles' backup tight end?
Yeah, so he got ruled out quickly, and that's never a good sign. So it looks like he's dealing with concussion. Just got to watch the practice report and look up the backup tight ends. It's Jack Stahl and Tyree Jackson. Tyree Jackson, for the record, has been on IR for most of the year with a back injury, and he has the same number of catches as I do this year. Jack Stahl has more catches than all of us combined, but those are the backups on the roster right now. So I don't know what you do with that.
Tyree Jackson, I think he was a college quarterback, and this is his rookie season. So he's
University of Buffalo.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was right about that. Yeah, he was there with Deion Jackson. I like that running back. I think Tyree Jackson's a good deep dynasty, especially dynasty leagues, a good pickup. I think worth it there, especially in tight end premium leagues. Maybe already like a deep stash, even if Goddard comes back.
I like that.
Tough to look at either of those as like redraft options though.
Well, you never know. Really sometimes these guys come out of nowhere, so it's like, there's something about like the devil you know, the devil you don't know, especially at tight end. It's like, do you want the guarantee, what feels like a guarantee of like 4 points from Jordan Akins, or do you want to like take a shot on a guy who could get you a goose egg but could actually be somebody? Sometimes these guys are worth a shot because it's the opportunity and the talent are there. It's just a question of, what do they really have? Now they're going to get an opportunity to show it. There may be something there.
Dalton Schultz came out from nowhere last year.
Yeah, exactly right.
These are the sorts of things that happen, right?
Stranger things have happened is exactly right.
Logan Thomas came from nowhere, right? He was a full quarterback as well, right?
Yep.
They got to play someone because
someone's got to line up and be out there. So
at one point,
why not take a shot?
It was Goddard and Smith and no one else. Oh, and Jordan Howard, and now it's just Smith. So throw one of these boys out there.
And Irv Smith last year when Kyle Rudolph got injured. He wasn't really a known commodity, and he had some monster games, and then he ended up being like equivalent of a tight end 1 in drafts this year, and then he tore his meniscus and all that badness happened. But he essentially came out of nowhere, so who's to say that one of these guys couldn't do the same thing?
Conklin now the same, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
So Dan, sounds like you're feeling it with Tyree Jackson as the priority of the two.
I've picked him up in a few leagues a few weeks ago. He's a guy that I kind of kept tabs on in the off season. They seem to be very high on him. I had written about him before. I think it was like last year as a rookie quarterback where he was being drafted. It was just one of those things. I just always kept an eye on him to see where he was when he got picked up by Philly this year. And they were like, oh, he's going to be a tight end. I just kind of kept an eye on him, and they seem to have really high hopes for him. Every report, and it's not like reports come out saying this guy's garbage, I can't believe they picked him up. But they always kind of were like, yeah, he's a development prospect, but we like what we've seen him as a tight end. A few weeks ago, I started picking him up in a few places, and it's just one of those things of just, I don't know, for some reason, I feel like he's the guy to go grab.
That's really an interesting take.
I'm 87% certain I'm wrong. So,
but those 13%, those are magic.
I was going to say Jackson as well, as between the two Eagles tight ends to pick up. I think it would be him. So I agree with you, Dan. So maybe we'll both be wrong.
There we
go. There's the Izzy spotting for tonight.
Izzy.
We're just
on that note, because Izzy's here, we want to do the prop bets, but let's rapid fire through the rest of the injuries that we have, unless there's anybody else that like really stood out to you is like, I really want to talk about this guy.
No, go ahead, Doc.
Okay. All right. So Baker Mayfield really getting beat up, had shoulder issues, got torn cartilage in his non-throwing shoulder. Now he's got a knee injury. They're calling a contusion or a bone bruise, no structural damage. The Browns are 5-5, so he's not likely to get shut down because of their record for weeks, if at all. So he's going to be out there for better or for worse. And it looks like he's going to be okay to go this week. Kyler Murray still dealing with the ankle sprain, missed weeks 9 and 10, no guarantees for week 11. Same deal that we saw with Saquon Barkley. We just have to wait. And it looked like he was closer this week. But again, even a low ankle sprain can take anywhere up to 4 weeks to heal. So he's still in that time frame. Colt McCoy, his replacement, has a pectoral or a chest injury. So he strained the muscle there. Looks like he's going to be okay. If not, Chris Streveler is the former CFL standout, is going to be the potential starter there. So that's interesting because I know he can run a little bit, but just kind of somebody to keep tabs on, watch practice reports for Kyler and for Colt McCoy. And maybe Chris Streveler becomes viable. My boy Jared Goff dealing with an oblique strain, injured it in the first quarter. Going to be dealing with pain and decreased range of motion. Clearly, that was affecting him, as well as the weather and just the desire of nobody else on the rest of that team other than DeAndre Swift wanted to win that game. So, maybe there's more work to be had for the running backs there if that's possible. But I think this is going to be something that's going to hinder him even further going forward. This definitely was affecting him. So I'm concerned, not that you're really feeling that high on Jared Goff's prospects, but he did have some games where he was a viable garbage time quarterback who put up some really good stats. And it might be one of those things where, believe it or not, even more stuff gets funneled to the running backs like DeAndre Swift because he just can't throw the ball more than 5 or 10 yards down the field without, significant discomfort. Tua Tagovailoa is back starting this week.
Backup quarterback?
It's David Blau.
Who's back? Who is it?
David Blau for the Lions, I'm pretty sure. I'll look that up to confirm.
All right.
Talk about Tyrod Taylor. Go ahead. I'll look that up while you're talking, Doc.
Yeah. So Tua is Jacoby Brissett ended up with kind of a minor, I think, a knee injury. So Tua's already been named the starter for this week. So looks like he's going to be okay going forward. Kind of like similar thing to Trey Lance and his injury. So it looks like he'll be back in. We'll see how that goes. Sam Darnold, broken shoulder. Probably looking at the rest of the fantasy regular season and then some. Cam is back in Carolina and expected to start going forward. So this probably knocks him out for the year. And relegates him to backup QB status for the foreseeable future. I mean, I can't see anybody else giving him a chance to be a starter next year. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think that he's going to have to earn his way back into starter position either by injury or some other happenstance.
Mike White didn't do so well for the Jets. Maybe they want him back. I
mean, that would be fantastic.
He worked for the Panthers at Cam Newton. Maybe. Well, we'll see if it works.
Yeah, I mean, it really has come full circle in a lot of ways. Russell Wilson, back from his finger injury, didn't look great. Was that just rust? Was it lingering effects from the finger? We don't know. We shall see. And Aaron Rodgers came back from COVID. Looks like, there's no more issues from that going forward. So that is quarterbacks. Running backs, talked about Aaron Jones. CEH, remember him? MCL sprain from like a month ago. He's back this week. Watch practice reports. Probably going to end up being a timeshare type deal if and when he is back. But both of those guys, him and Daryl Williams, will have value going forward. The Chiefs are starting to, as Travis Kelce said, get their swagger back. Chase Edmonds ankle sprain on IR. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, okay, so for I guess with Edmonds on IR, I mean that one's probably season, right? Like we're just talking exactly. We're talking about Cordell Patterson on that one.
Yeah. So he's on IR. He's probably looking at being out for another month. Eno Benjamin didn't have a good game. I still think there's a buying opportunity there because the value for Eno Benjamin isn't so much the value that he has now. It's the value that he'll have if James Conner gets hurt, because that has been known to happen not infrequently.
Dan, Eno Benjamin or Wayne Gallman?
There you go.
Who are you picking up?
Eno Benjamin. I'll take Eno.
Wow. Okay, so again, he's saying look elsewhere than the Falcons. Clearly,
he really doesn't want any part of that. For the record, I would pick up Gallman.
Yeah,
I like Gallman.
Between those two.
I don't like what Atlanta are doing with.
But I like them all. I'd say they're all worth a shot.
You're almost saying rather than the player, you're investing in the offense, right? The Cardinals, what they're doing with the running backs, you'd rather go with that.
You know what? We know the Titans like to run the ball. They're using 3. Foreman looked pretty good. I'd go Foreman. Like we saw Edmonds' usage with the Cardinals. Eno Benjamin was okay with the role that he had. Probably got you 7 to 9 points this week. Gallman, get you 3. The way that Atlanta are going.
So, Doc, the one thing I did want to ask you about CEH. Yeah. Let's say they're saying it's going to be a timeshare with Daryl Williams. Are you playing Clyde Edwards-Helaire his first week back, or are you going to leave him on the bench for week 11 and presuming that's when he's back, and then wait and see after the bye week and then play him week 13 maybe?
I mean, if you have that opportunity, then yeah, that'd be good. And the only reason I say that is not so much that I'm down on CEH or worried about the injury. It's just he wasn't exactly like setting the world on fire prior to his injury. So my expectation is you're going to get 60 to 70% of whatever that was. So how valuable is that to you? It may be pretty valuable if everybody else on your team is injured or out or something or on a bye, but it may not be. So it's been, for me, it's about expectations. It's like, yeah, CEH will be back. The guy who really gets hurt by that is Daryl Williams, because now he's presumably going to have to give up some more slice of the pie to CEH. But that's just the way that I see it with him, and we'll have to see how the rest of the offense shakes out. But at least they're looking better, thanks to the Raiders are like the elixir for a lot of teams. The Raiders come to town, and then all of a sudden everybody's feeling better, and then they go out and the offense looks a lot better. So that Raiders D is good for what ails you offensively, apparently. So Chase Edmonds, we talked about. Just a couple of things I wanted to touch on. Chris Carson, practice Wednesday, Thursday, missed Friday, and didn't play again week 10 after the bye. The fact that his neck could not hold up to practice is not a good sign, and it just keeps looking worse and worse. So I'm really just waiting. It's like DEFCON 2. Like I'm just waiting for Pete Carroll to take off the rose-colored glasses and just relent and say that he's done for the year. I could be wrong, but it's been a really long time, and it just doesn't seem like it's whatever's going on there is able to stand up to the rigors of playing running back in the NFL. And they may just have to eventually, despite his best efforts, despite his desire to want to come back, to just say, hey, look, physically, you're not going to be able to hold up to this. So, we don't want to expose you to the risk of permanent damage here. So let's just pack it in. And they have him under contract for next year, so they do have an investment, and they have an incentive to keep him, upright and active for another year. It's not like he's a free agent after this, and it's a sunk cost. So That's what I'm waiting for there. I hope I'm wrong, but if you have shares of the other Seattle running backs, I would not sell them short just yet. And then the last two, James Robinson came back from his ankle heel thing, played week 10, looked pretty decent, got 17 touches, scored a touchdown. So he's at least back doing James Robinson things. And then Antonio Gibson looked good enough against a really, really good run defense. And this shin could pop up at any time again. But it looks like the 2 weeks of rest did him some good. So hopefully he can carry that forward. I still say now is the time to make room for Jared Patterson in case this all goes sideways in a couple of weeks. So you're not scrambling or left with empty pockets down the stretch and in the playoffs if you're an Antonio Gibson owner and you have the potential to do that.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem like McKissick is the handcuff. Like McKissick has his role; it'll stay constant whether Gibson's in the game or not. And so,
he has standalone value. It's more like if Gibson were to get hurt, then Patterson would see a jump because of the opportunity to get the carries and things like that. Double whammy of hamstring injuries. Julio Jones looks like the worst one. He's on IR. He's been dealing with that all year, even going back to last year, which was kind of my concern coming into this year. Now he's on IR. Earliest return is week 14, and then we'll see after that. The good news is the Titans are doing well. Despite all the injuries they've had, the bad news is because they're doing well, they're looking at a playoff spot, and they may not bring him back towards the end of the regular season because they want him to be available for the playoffs. We just got to wait and see. DeAndre Hopkins, same thing, missed the last 2 weeks after being in and out of 8. We just got to wait and see and hope for the best. And let's see. A couple other guys real quick. Michael Gallup came back from his calf injury, made it through the game okay. Played week 10, did all right. 3 catches, 42 yards, not setting the world on fire. But, again, his real value is if something happens to CeeDee Lamb or Amari Cooper, then he could see a big spike in value. He does have, what-the-heck flex play appeal. But if something happens to one of those other 2 guys and he steps in to be the number 2, then I think that's really exciting. Antonio Brown, no change there. Still worried about what's going on there, but we just have to wait and see. And then Anthony Schwartz for Cleveland, concussion. He's in the protocol. Just watch practice reports. And then to finish it off, some tight ends. Hayden Hurst, ankle injury, ruled out, did not return. No word on the severity. High ankle, low ankle, we don't know. Could the score have had something to do with it? Possibly. Just got to watch practice reports on that. Gronk, more of the same. He's been out forever. Tampa Bay may just end up trying to make do without him until the playoffs and then bring him back. We don't know. Logan Thomas, still not designated to return off of IR yet, but it looks like maybe he's getting closer. So we'll see how he looks in practice this week. And then last but certainly not least, DFS darling Ricky Seals-Jones with a hip injury. He's day-to-day as of now. Looks like it was an acute aggravation of an ongoing issue. So no telling really how much this is going to affect him. But just watch practice reports and see what comes up with both of those guys there. And I think that's it.
So I know Fantasy Futurist podcast talking James Robinson was impressive, certainly on the heel, Doc. Good to see. So it looks like he's like you can probably again relegate Carlos Hyde to the bench completely. So we'll get to the Monday night game now. Rams at 49ers, so NFC West battle tonight. It's a 50.5 over under, and the Rams are 3.5 point favorites on the road. So a few things. So Dan, you had something interesting about the 49ers haven't won in front of a home crowd for a while. I don't even want to say the name of the game because it's a very painful memory for me.
Yeah, San Fran hasn't won at home in over a year, which was the last time they played the Rams at home. So that was in October, but there was no fans in that game. The last game they won before that was the Packers NFC Conference Championship game.
Wow.
So they've effectively won 2 games at home in nearly 2 years. Nah, that's all right. There's a reason. That's okay. They're 3.5 underdog. Let's just give them 3.5 at home when they can't win there. Nah, let's do that. That makes sense.
Was that championship game that you're referring to, was that January of 2019?
2020. It was January 19, 2020. Yeah. was technically the 2019 season into 2020. Yeah.
Okay. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so it was technically the 2019 season.
It's where 49er fans are pleading to right now, Doc. That's who they're calling for a win here.
2 years. Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
there's a lot going on with this game. If I can, San Fran is 5-3 over this year. Rams are 5-3-1 over this year as well. San Fran is 0-4 against the spread at home this year. Rams are 2-2 covering the spread on the road. Rams are 4-1 on Monday Night Football with McVay. Only Houston has allowed more points per game than the 49ers. That's 25 points per game. The 49ers, 29.8 points per game at home. Shanahan has the most wins against McVay than any other team. The 49ers are 5-3 against McVay with Shanahan. So it's all over the place. This game jumps where you think they're terrible, the other team does something either worse or better. But, for a 4-point difference at home to be worse, that's kind of alarming to me for San Fran this week. And for them to be given 3.5 start, I don't think that's enough.
So you like the Rams to cover that 3.5 point spread? Like you think that spread should be more?
Yeah, I just don't care for San Fran. I think they're garbage. So yeah, Rams they're gonna put the absolute beating for them.
Would anyone pick the 49ers as 3.5 point underdogs?
No.
They're not going to get close enough.
All right, and there we go. So Rams are going to steamroll them.
That's just terrible.
I mean, I don't know, but I wouldn't feel good.
0-4 against the spread at home. 0-4 at home. They're garbage. Hot garbage.
Somehow they barely lost to the Philafragila Eagles. So
don't worry, barely. Yeah, don't worry.
That was a while ago.
Later.
So before we get into our Twitter polls, which our producer Dan has so graciously done and given us the results for, Gladys, you actually asked a good question in the private chat for us here. Who's going to score the first touchdown? You were saying there's OBJ has plus 1,400 odds at it.
Yeah.
Dan, sounds like you'd really like that. Just talk about like how they're going to design stuff for him, right?
Oh, give me some of that. Why not?
That's exciting.
My thing is, what's Daryl Henderson at? I'm curious on that.
He's plus 600, I think. Hold on one sec. He's the favorite out of all of them.
Okay.
Oh, he'd have to be.
That's what I would say. Everything equal, I would pick him. But yeah, obviously you go with the odds there. Yeah.
I'll give you one. What's Kyle Juszczyk paying?
There you go. Yeah, because Jermichael Hasty's inactive. We're going to talk about that. That's true.
One of those games you feel like Dan, Juszczyk's going to pop up and do something stupid.
You were saying you can't find confirmation if Sermon's active today. It looks like he might not be playing either.
I read somewhere where it's the first time this year that all 49ers rookies are active, but I'm not saying that the source was the most, it was Twitter, mate.
Daryl Henderson is plus 650, and Kyle is plus 3,500.
It just feels like one of those things where San Fran are going to get cute and do something stupid. Because, Shanahan, he's awesome, right?
Jimmy G's plus 2,500.
To run it in.
Yeah, to run it in. Or, yeah.
The way he's doing that lately,
he covered the 3.5 yards they're giving him.
Well, yeah, we'll touch on that. But yeah, for quarterback, for passing for Garoppolo, Dan, you got these lines from BetMGM. Over under 247.5 passing yards for Garoppolo. Stafford 283.5, so about a 40-yard difference there. So looking at the Twitter poll, Stafford won 50% of the votes on the over, and then Garoppolo had 30% of the votes on the under. So interesting there. So Gladys, I guess I didn't let you answer what you thought about for the touchdown. So if you want to talk about that, like what your favorite touchdown lines are, then feel free to talk about the passing yards for the quarterbacks as well.
I just put the money on OBJ because why not? I think I put on.
That's a girl. Go on, Gladys, get amongst it. Let's get Hollywood. Let's go.
But for the passing yards for the quarterbacks, I would go under on Jimmy G and over on Matthew Stafford. I agree with Dan. I think the Rams are going to run away with this game, even with George Kittle back.
Doc, what are you thinking for the passing yards for the quarterbacks?
Oh wait, what? Yeah, I don't know. None of the above. Ask somebody else. Izzy, where are you? Don't ask me this.
Okay, sorry, Doc. I just thought you might want to touch in on Stafford. I know how much you like Goff, so I figured the former Rams, former Lions quarterbacks, you like both, right? I guess not. Dan, what were you thinking about the yards?
I mean, I kind of like them both to go over. San Fran's going to have to keep up. They're going to have to do what they have to do. But ultimately, I think this is Stafford's show, and why wouldn't he just keep throwing it? Why not? Why would they change what they're doing? They're on an incredible pace this year to do something really good. I can't see them changing up too much. Stafford over for me.
Yeah, I think I voted for Stafford over on the poll, so I contributed that 50%. There you go. I'm not so weird after all, apparently. So rushing yards now. We've got Daryl Henderson at 69.5 yards, Elijah Mitchell 63.5, and then Dan already hinted at it. Jimmy Garoppolo 3.5 yards, Matthew Stafford 2.5 yards. So really putting it low on those quarterbacks.
Jesus.
Hey, earn every yard, right? This was crazy. I couldn't believe when I saw this because, obviously, with the betting sites, when you're looking for props, for those who are listening, they probably already know. They're not going to leave themselves exposed to what they don't know, right? So they're not putting up lines for JaMychal Hasty, Jeff Wilson. It was basically Daryl Henderson. These were the four options that were there, and I was like, this is too good to not throw in because, they're low yardage, right? Listen, Matt Stafford could dive on 4th and 1 3 times to cover. He could charge 4 to cover. But Garoppolo, if you remember going all the way back to when he did his ACL, he did that, scrambling and getting out of the pocket. And he looked all right until he tried to come back into the field. So, he can move when he has to. It's not beyond him to get 3-4 yards.
He's been doing it a lot this year, actually, running and getting touchdowns and stuff. So yeah,
you could say he's a little inspired. I understand that with current players on the team, he's tucking and running every chance he can get. But I kind of like Mitchell over 63.5. To be honest, I kind of like that one. I do like that.
I was gonna say I feel like all of these over make sense. Like, does anyone want to pick any of these rushing yards under? Does anyone feel convicted enough in any of these under? So that's what I was thinking too. Like they're all.
I think the play might be to go under on both quarterbacks because I was just looking at Stafford. Stafford has only gone over 3.5 yards like 3 times.
You've been down the
like 0, 0, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. So I mean, yeah, you're gonna sweat that. You're gonna sweat that out for the whole game, but.
You've been down the racetrack.
Turn off and Red Notice on Netflix, and then come back and see if you won some money. I don't know. That's what I think. Like I think both of these guys, Jimmy Garoppolo's got 33 yards for the year, and Stafford's got 37 yards for the year. So it's like if you really want to lose some weight after you make a bet today, bet the under on both of them. And then don't watch the game. Go do something else, and then just collect your money tomorrow.
I actually voted for Garoppolo over. This is my favorite line of the week, to be honest. 3.5. I think that's so easy to take. It's like they're so tempting to do it, and I wonder if Aaron Donald stops him. The Rams have been a much better pass defense than run defense, so. I kind of find it hard to think it won't happen personally, but yeah. We'll talk about receiving props real quick. So we've got Cooper Kupp set at 96.5 yards, Deebo Samuel at 69.5 yards, Brandon Ayuk 49.5, and then Tyler Higbee 40.5. So not getting much from the other receivers for the wide receivers out for the Rams outside of Kupp. But yeah, 96.5 for Kupp, 69.5 for Samuel, 49.5 for Ayuk, 40.5 for Higbee. Does anyone want to see any of those that they really want to put their name behind?
No.
Because I have one that I really like. It's the Higbee line. Just back to the argument of Beckham coming isn't going to change Higbee's role. Like, he's going to play again, probably 90% of the snaps. He's got designated targets going to him kind of no matter whatever the tight end is. To get 41 yards, I think is super attainable for Higbee in this game. So that would be the one I would like out of all these receiving yards the most. But I in this game, I like a lot of the rushing lines a lot more personally.
So game started. Rams have the ball first.
Let me find that out. I'm going to find that out.
And
what are you going to find out, Dan?
I want to find out how he's done against San Fran.
Oh, Higgins history.
Bombed OBJ.
Bear with me.
Letter to the Cleveland fan. Man, he runs like a serial killer. OBJ on the field, out wide.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
I'm telling you, there's a chance.
This is a fairly
OBJ. First pass was to OBJ.
All right, so here we go.
Did he catch it?
That's right. They were going.
Look at Dan, the two there.
Did he actually catch it though?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, okay. Good. Anyway, Dan, go ahead.
So, last 3 games, Higbee against San Fran. He went 11-9-104. He went 4-3-56 and then 2-1 for 6. So 2 games he's cleared it quite easily. The last one, not so much. They also had Gerald Everett and Robert Woods in there as well. So go on, Beckham, huh? Why wouldn't you get the crowd all riled up? I just don't understand. You know, Faye's a big fan too, you know. He's got that flair to him. He's got that little ego. He wants to pound his chest. You know, he's got that Napoleon syndrome. He's got a bit of that.
Because he's a former college receiver too, right? So he super coaches up a lot of positions, but especially the wide receiver. So it's kind of like the one group he has like an extra connection with.
Why wouldn't you want to go and show the world, look what I can do with this guy?
All 3 wide receivers on the same side.
Yeah, you throw them all on there. Why wouldn't you? I just if you see what Dallas do with 3 when they do it effectively. Obviously, they've just got Gallup back.
Yeah.
When they have those 3 guys out there at the same time, it's like with Arizona when they throw all 4 receivers out there at one time. You sit there going, God, how are you going to stop that? Like, is a healthy Beckham an upgrade on Robert Woods?
Probably.
So, effectively, they've half upgraded if he's healthy. It's not like he's less healthy than Robert Woods right now, right?
Well, yeah, that's true. He's at least healthy enough to be out of the field. That is an accurate statement, yes.
Right now, he's healthier than Robert Woods right now. So, you know, it's one of those things. I don't know. It's going to take him a little bit to gel, and he's going to get into his rhythm. It's not like it's about stats.
Hold on. Interception. Trying to get to Beckham long. Interception.
They're going to Van Jefferson.
And I'm out.
They're going to do this whole game. I can see
Yeah, he tried to
process silver results. Gladys.
Yeah, it's still early.
Double teamed. Interception.
Easy. Good process. Hey, they were trying.
They were trying.
So
would have been a touchdown.
I actually, so we're gonna, I said it's early, but it's not early in this program. Like it's pretty late here. We're gonna head out. I guess the one question I would have is AJ Dillon worth a first round pick in Dynasty? Like, because again, I'm looking at Dynasty leagues. He's not someone you could pick up. Like, he's going to be on rosters. So if you want AJ Dillon, you're probably going to have to give up a first round pick. Whether it's probably in both one QB and Superflex too, probably. Like, I don't think even a Superflex second gets it done. I think it has to be a first. So who's willing to make that bet?
No, I wouldn't.
No.
Okay, so hold. So he's not
I probably would, just because I think he still has value going into next year. And, there's a non-zero chance that Aaron Jones has a setback, something happens to him, and then he could really be valuable down the stretch. So it's a risk, but it might be a risk worth taking. It just depends on what that first-round pick looks like and how much you really value it, how much you like the class coming out next year. I'm not super excited about it, but the first-round pick does have value. AJ Dillon's going to have significant value over the next few weeks. So if you're really trying to make that push to get into the playoffs and, maybe some guys are coming off the injured list and trying to shake it out from there, then now's the time to kind of start making those hard choice gambles, plant your flag and really go for it if you're going to go for it. Otherwise, just stand pat and, take that first round pick and ride off into next year with it, I guess.
I think the idea is if you've only got one first round pick, if you haven't acquired multiple firsts, what's the player you're going to invest on? Is AJ Dillon the best player you get for the first? Like, let's say instead of going after Dillon, do you give the first to get Daryl Henderson instead? Like Dan Gladys, does that sound like something more appealing?
Yep.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Okay, so if you don't want to give a first for AJ Dillon, would you give up a first for a different running back like Daryl Henderson, for instance?
I'm not as high on running backs as you are, so probably not.
Fair enough. So you would say save the first for like an elite wide receiver to go after instead?
Yes.
Okay. Which again, that's important for the dynasty context of if you only have one first, prioritizing what you're going to go after.
I get trying to go get Dillon. I agree with Doc with everything he said there, which is great. Because I agree with him. Like, there's no chance that Jones doesn't come back and isn't susceptible to further injury. This happens frequently. Look at Christian McCaffrey, right? This is happening. Saquon Barkley, like, these are things that happen. I understand that this is a thing, but Dillon for me is this year. I don't see him being any more than a placeholder. Jones comes back, he might get 5 to 8 carries a game, and cool. He can be very efficient with that.
No, that's definitely the risk.
Yeah, that's the problem with that. If I could get Henderson right now for the same first round pick every day, because it's not like he's going to have less of a role than what Dillon will have next year, if that makes sense. I know that Henderson now, after what he's done this year, has probably put his mark on this team to at least when Cam Akers can come back healthy enough. That's what I think. And I could try and upsell Henderson.
I don't know about that because the narrative kind of changed. Like, and you might be right, but the thing is, it's amazing to me to go back and look at 2 months ago where people were like, I don't think Daryl Henderson's that talented. I don't think he's going to be able to be a feature back. I don't think he's worth a second round pick, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now basically people are saying, not you, but people are saying that Cam Akers is relegated to the dumpster because, out of sight, out of mind. And this is Daryl Henderson's team. It's like, no, he just did basically what we talked about. He's a quality running back. And when given the opportunity to step up, he did. And Cam Akers, the same thing applies to him. Like, he's coming off the Achilles injury and things like that, but he's not going to disappear. Melvin Gordon didn't disappear. No matter how good Javonte Williams is, he's still there. He's still scoring touchdowns. He won't go away. It's going to be it's going to be more of the same. So maybe you could play the market there, but I agree. Like, if you're buying Daryl Henderson now, you're definitely buying him high.
I'll get you.
You might be buying him at its apex.
Could you get a first for James Robinson right now?
That's another name I was about to say.
I don't know.
For me, if I could get James Robinson instead, I would. Like, Dillon's good. He's really good. I think he's really good. But if I can get a first for a guy who I already know that there's an offense half built around now,
I think you got to look at it for this year. Like, you're pushing all your chips in this year. Get one of those guys that you mentioned.
If it's just this year, I feel like both Rams and Packers are playing late for that number 1 seed into the season. I don't think you don't know what's going to happen with the Jags with James Robinson. I understand that too. I would probably try and get Daryl Henderson for that if I could. Yeah,
if you're pushing all your chips into the middle for this year, I think that's great because that's when he's going to have his most value is this year, and then next year you nobody knows, right? My opinion.
Awesome. I'm a fan of Dillon. I think he's fantastic. I have no problem with that. It's just if I could get a running back that's already doing what we hope he can do now, I'd rather go get that guy that's doing it now.
No, I get it. And you know what I say? Like, if you're thinking 3 weeks from now, you're thinking too far ahead. Too many things can change. It's this week and next week, and pretty much that's it. So if you're looking for a running back for the next 2 to 3 weeks, either one of those guys is going to work, but more likely you're going to have better value this year with guys like Daryl Henderson, maybe James Robinson. That's just this year. Next year, you could see their value going off a cliff, but you can't win. You can't think about, if you always are thinking about next year, you'll never win this year. So that's kind of the thing. Like, sometimes you just got to say, hey, you know what, I'm going for it. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay, but I'm going for it.
Yeah, I've definitely given up a first for Mark Ingram in his time with the Ravens, and that turned out to not be so good. So, you push in and you hope, and sometimes it doesn't work out. One last one, James Conner or A.J. Dillon. Who would you rather give up a first for?
Ooh. Conner.
Yeah, I was going to say A.J. Dillon.
Conner. I don't like having this pick between that.
I think it's Dillon.
That's a really tough one.
I would say Dillon, especially from a dynasty perspective, because I'm not convinced Aaron Jones is going to be coming back for the fantasy playoffs. Like that's one where I could see him being held out to the playoffs, like the NFL playoffs. If again, especially if the Packers win this week against the Vikings and almost lock up the NFC North, like that's one where they could say we'd rather rest him. He does we're not as worried about rust for a running back as we are rest. Like, I know right now they're just saying 1 to 2 weeks. I was shocked when I saw that report because I was thinking with you, Doc. I was thinking at least a month.
But I'm glad because that keeps the injury analysts doing what we do because they consistently underestimate like how long these injuries take to heal. I think in 1 or 2 weeks he's going to feel better, but the injury is not going to be healed, and that puts him at big time risk for re-injury because it's not healed yet. That's the way these things work.
And the other thing too is, and this is the opposite of what you're saying, Doc. I think next off season, regardless of if Aaron Jones is back healthy or not, I think A.J. Dillon's value will be ahead of James Conner's value. So from a next year value asset, I feel like Conner has the least value of the names we mentioned. A.J. Dillon, James Robinson, Henderson. So I think that would be why I'd be hesitant to give my first for Conner. I would more likely give it to those other three, I think, just personally. But that's...
No, I agree. I agree with you 100%.
Anyway, so a little bit overtime on the dynasty discussion. I don't know, Gladys, did you want to chime in on the selling for the first at all?
No.
All right.
You don't want to say anything nice about James Conner, the former Steeler?
No, I don't.
Okay, I don't blame you.
I have nothing else to say about it.
Well, if there is nothing else to say, I think we're done here. We have nothing else to share with you, but I appreciate all the listeners and viewers for joining, chatting with us. Really appreciate that. You can follow us all on Twitter. Gladys is at Gladys L. Tyler. Dan's at the B League Says. Dr. James Freddy is at TFS Doc. And you can also buy his book, Injury Suck in Your Fantasy.
If you guys are watching on YouTube and you're tired of player injuries costing you games, you shouldn't be at the mercy of vague or misleading injury reports. So please check out my book, Injury Suck, but your fantasy team doesn't have to. In just a few short hours and for a few bucks, I will help you use injury analysis to win more fantasy games, not just this week, not just next week, not just this year, forever. So thank you for all those that are out there supporting me. Thank you guys, as always, for your support. And thanks for all the comments and for watching. It's always great to come in here and chop it up with you guys.
Yeah, Doc, appreciate that. And yes, appreciate everyone. On behalf of Dan, Doc, Gladys, and myself, Kyle Senra on Twitter at Senra Says, this was the 2-point conversion, part of the Going for Two Live Network. Bye for now, and we'll see you all next week.